everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video we're going to talk about the books that I've read recently, and we're going to try to be as to the point and as quick about it as possible. I have a lot of end of the year videos to film in December, and I just wanted to snack in another recent reads before that. The first book that I want to talk about is Stepping into Love by Monica McCallan, which is a very autumnal type of romance, and it is a low-key Romeo and Juliet. It's about two rival families that are business owners in the same small town. The story follows Sierra, who moved to a bigger city because her father was homophobic, and in general she didn't want to stay in town, but in the present moment her father dies and she goes back. Her father wasn't a pleasant man. She had a lot of enemies in town, and the family that he fought with the most is the family in town that kept a bed and breakfast. And essentially it's the bed and breakfast where Sierra is trying to rent a room. She gets into a bit of a squabble with the new owner of the B&B, Lucy, and they both realize what families they come from. So there is a genuine reason for them to not like each other straight away. I have to mention that Sierra's father genuinely tried to run Lucy's family out of business and was absolutely horrible to them, so that felt justified. But at the end of the day, I give this book 3 stars because in my opinion this is not what people want from rivals to lovers or from hate to love romances. It lacks the intensity of a proper enemies to lovers, which we most often see in fantasy romances or in fantasy genre, and it also isn't funny enough to be a rom-com, so the trope doesn't really work. It's definitely very autumnal. It's a small-town romance and it feels cozy because of the setting, but it lacks the elements that I want from the romance that is marketed this way. I am not a fan of sweet, conflict-free romances. In 90% of situations, I would prefer a more complicated, messy plot in my romances, a more complex gray characters in my romances. So sweet, nice, cute romances, they just usually don't work for me. Then I read Suddenly You by Lisa Kleypas, which is a historical MF romance. I love Lisa Kleypas. I think she's genius. This book surprisingly was an absolute failure for me, even though I loved the premise. It follows Amanda. She's in her 30s. She is a famous author and she made a name for herself. She is making her own money and is quite independent, but she is a virgin and at the same time a spinster. So she decides to take things into her own hands. She doesn't believe herself to be a beauty, so she goes to a public house to hire a man, and the owner of the public house tells her that she's going to send a man Amanda's way at a specific time, at a specific day, and the man comes. But this man, Jack, is not a sex worker. He is actually a publisher that bought one of Amanda's first works and wants her to work on it with him, to edit it and to publish it as a serial. Amanda doesn't know this, and Jack plays along. He pretends to be the sex worker. Amanda finds him very appealing and Jack finds her very appealing, so they fool around a little bit. Then of course everything comes to the surface and Jack confesses that he actually is not a sex worker, that he came to offer Amanda a deal about her books. Amanda is embarrassed, of course, and she doesn't want to accept the proposition because she doesn't want to be a serial author. It was not particularly prestigious at the time, but he offers such a ridiculous amount of money that she agrees at the end. And this way starts their will they, won't they kind of relationship. What I really didn't like about the story is, surprisingly, Amanda, and also I didn't really like Jack either. Amanda was an anxious mess. She didn't like herself and she was so insecure about herself despite Jack genuinely telling her that she's beautiful and he finds her really appealing. It was really hard to miss. The evidence was standing in front of her eyes. So I found this part very unappealing. I just struggle with female characters that are this negatively obsessed with their looks. She also was a young woman in her 30s, and she read like a woman approaching her 50s. There was something about her voice that didn't read as youthful, it read as old. Jack, on the other hand, was really pushy, and when you combine all these things together, it doesn't lead to very sexy sex. I was struggling with that a lot, and it was putting me off Emma performances altogether, and I don't even read them that much, but still. And the plot itself and the choices that they made were so ridiculously bad at the end. This book featured one of the most hated tropes in the romance genre, and I feel like I don't even need to mention it. Everyone knows what this trope is. But for the sake of people that have not went through their Romance 101 course yet, I'm just going to say it. Spoiler alert. Basically, Amanda accidentally gets pregnant, and the relationship quickly turns to shit because of it. Jack at the end also decides to be with Amanda because of the baby. Initially, it turns out that he wasn't planning to have a serious relationship with her at all. It's a mess. Anyway, he decides to be with her because of the baby specifically, and then the shit becomes even weirder. He becomes very possessive of her, and I think the last blow for me was that Amanda actually loses the baby almost at the end of the story. It felt so cruel because what was the reason? It was absolutely unnecessary. It just felt like another storyline to make Amanda feel bad about herself. I hated this book, to be honest, and I had no idea I could hate a Lisa Kleypas book. So proceed with caution. I know that there are some people that like this. It was quite popular on booktube at some point. If you like this book, tell me why. I promise not to be judgmental about it. I changed course entirely after this because the romance was just not giving. So I picked up a random fantasy book from Scribd. The cover art looked so pretty, so I was like, yeah, it seems like an adventure book, like a fantasy sci-fi adventure book about a found family. There clearly is a group of characters that we're going to follow, and in many ways I was wrong. I picked up the middling Affliction by Shvartsman. This cover, just look at it. The artist that created it is incredibly talented, and I just enjoy looking at it. I enjoy making up my own stories when I look at it. The story has only one point of view though, and it's a very boys club type of book. If you are a woman and you read the early popular fantasy books, you know what I'm talking about. This book screams of wish fulfillment for guys, and it has all the classic elements of this kind of fiction. The hero named Conrad compares himself to Batman a lot. This is the first and immediate sign. He's teetering between humble and humble brag, but I was willing to give it a chance because I actually liked the atmosphere of it. I thought the world is very enjoyable. It's an urban fantasy, and I tend to like the subgenre. Conrad is a warrior slash guardian of sorts. He guards regular people from all kinds of malicious creatures and their shenanigans. It is revealed that unlike other magical users, he's not magical at all, that he is called a 𝕊𝕆𝕀𝕇, which means he can sense magic, but he can't use it. These types of people are actually outcasts in magical societies, and some magical sects actually use them as sacrifices. So if he's ever challenged on his magical abilities, it is understood that he's going to be in trouble. We're introduced to a variety of different characters. In my opinion, there were far too many of them, especially considering that they didn't have point of views. And we're told that a magical market is going to feature a middling that was caught by the magical society and that people can actually buy and use however they want. So Conrad decides to save this person, and of course this middling turns out to be a defenseless, young, beautiful woman that he saves with even more enthusiasm. She also loves his sense of humor. She's quirky. She enjoys all his comic book references. Should I even continue? You know where I'm going with that. Not that I'm against men having their wish fulfillment books, because women do have them as well, and it's normal. It's just I was certainly not the audience for it. In regards to how the book is written, which techniques the author used, I think it was way too long, and the hero went on way too many side quests. It actually distracted from the main storyline. It felt very disjointed because of it, and I think at least 20% of this book should have been sacrificed. At the end, I gave this book 3 stars. I think it's a good first attempt. There are certainly things in the 𝕊𝕊𝕀𝔸𝕃 Affliction that I enjoyed. Specifically the atmosphere, I think it's great. I think it's a debut novel, so I'm trying to not judge as harshly. The next book that I picked up was Blood Thinners by Naomi Novak, and I enjoyed this paranormal romance much more than everything I mentioned so far. I gave this 3 stars as well, though. It was not a book without problems. Blood Thinners is about a young woman named Minna who works for a supernatural agency that controls supernatural creatures. All the supernatural creatures in this world live amongst humans, but they are heavily observed. Minna is very dedicated to her job. Her father is her boss, and she expected to get a raise, but prior to the start of the novel, she got into an accident at work, and it seems like this accident interfered with her plans. She gets a new job, they get an influx of undocumented vampires in their area, and she has to investigate it. All the roads lead to a weight loss company that promise incredible results if people only are going to drink their shakes. No one really knows what's in the shakes, it's a secret, and Minna becomes an employee in the company to properly investigate. There she meets the daughter of the owner of the company, whose name is Karma, and she finds that she's very attracted to her, which interferes with her work. It genuinely is a fun novel. I think Naomi Novak has a really good sense of humor, and I loved her portrayal of some of the supernatural creatures. There are actually more books in that series, and I'm considering them. Even though I gave this book 3 stars, I think the romance was hot. I just didn't like the middle of it. I thought it was just long and nothing happened. But the start, the end, really good. After all the struggles that I've had to endure and all the effort that I've put into finding a book that I'm going to love, I finally decided to read We Could Be So Good by Sebastian. And I don't know why I'm surprised, because Sebastian never disappoints me. She never ever disappoints. Her books are brilliant, and even the ones that I've given 3 stars were better than all the other 3 stars on my Goodreads shelf. She usually writes Regency romances, and this was a very interesting shift because it's a 1950s New York romance. Her style is definitely still recognizable. She's really good at writing banter and chemistry, and she's really good at pinpointing slice of life scenes between characters that feel very intimate, but the setting is new and fresh, and the way she deals with the struggles that these characters eventually meet in their lives because of their relationship is handled differently as well. I talked a little bit about this in the reading log, where I was trying to find a 5-star read. This book was part of the vlog, and I don't think I'm going to repeat myself, but the contrast was very interesting, and if you read some of her Regency stuff, and this book, you can definitely tell. The story is about Nick and Andy, rival reporters for the same paper. Nick has built his career on his own. He started from the very tedious, very low-paying jobs, and Andy is the son of the paper's owner. They should hate each other on paper, but in real life they find each other charming and immediately become friends. This friendship obviously grows into something more, and they have to figure out if their relationship is possible. I love the leads, and I think Sebastian did particularly well in this book with those small, intimate slice of life moments. The first 20 or 30% of the book is just slice of life. We get to experience how these characters became friends and how they spend their time, what they're thinking about, the small episodes in their lives, and it's so endearing. I love this book. I love this couple. I love the story overall. I think Sebastian tried something new here, and she undeniably succeeded. Then I listened to Kingfisher's Nettle and Bone. She has all this novella-length, gritty, atmospheric fantasy stories that a lot of people love, and I wanted to try her work out, and I love this as well. It was such an interesting fantasy novella conceptually and stylistically. The story is about Mara, who is the third daughter, the third princess of her kingdom. And because she's the third, she has the luxury of not becoming a pawn in her mother's political games. Her older sister is married off to a prince of a different kingdom in exchange for protection of their own. When the news of her eldest sister's death comes, she's shocked, and she's shocked even more when their mother offers the hand of the second sister in exchange of the one that died. The second sister bears the prince a child, and the child dies. The whole family comes to the funeral and is reunited for once, and it is revealed to Mara that her sister's husband is very abusive, and he only is slightly kinder to her when she's pregnant because he's expecting an heir. They immediately figure out that when her sister is going to give him an heir, he's going to get rid of her, and if she's not going to give him an heir and is going to die from his violence, then it's going to be Mara's turn. So it's an impossible situation, and Mara doesn't really know how to break out her sister, not get herself into trouble at the same time, and save their kingdom, not leave it to be free for all. So she decides to go and find a Grey Witch in hopes that she is gonna find the solution, considering that she is a magical user. This book is a journey adventure book, and unlike many adventures, it's a very bleak and very grim adventure. It blends the fairy tale conventions and the dark fantasy conventions so well. In some way, as I figured out recently, it reminds me of the originals of the fairy tales. Overall, I found this book to be atmospheric, gorgeous, interesting, thought-provoking. I love the characters. It was so enjoyable in general to read from a point of view of a 30-year-old woman in fantasy. It's so incredibly rare that I genuinely cherish when I find books about slightly older protagonists. I also casually listened to a non-fiction book about pests. It's called Pests: How Humans Create Animal Villains, and it's by Bethany Brookshire. It's such a cool surname, don't you think? Either way, it is a non-fiction book about pest control and about a variety of different ways civilization approached it throughout the existence of humanity. I thought that this book is going to be just vegan propaganda, to be quite honest with you, but it wasn't. It was actually a well-balanced point of view on pests, and the author gave a lot of examples of unusual animals that are considered pests in different places on planet Earth. It was genuinely a very interesting nonfiction book, and on a topic that I didn't expect to enjoy reading about. Pests are not exactly something that I think about on the daily, so this book genuinely surprised me. I really enjoyed this. I found the structure really brilliant. Now, if you cannot deal with information about pest control, because the author does describe the methods in a very unemotional way. She is a scientist that either worked or still works with rats. I don't think this book is for you. I'm not particularly emotional about most animals, so it didn't really affect me in any way, but be cautious. We talked a lot about serious stuff in this book, and I think we just have to talk about something silly now. I was scrolling, as I usually do, just scouring the internet, and I found this. Claimed by the Orc Prince by Lionel Hart. If you look at this cover and this title and you have preconceived notions about what it's gonna be, you're right. It is all of those things. The most appealing part about this romance, if we're being honest, is that it knows what it is. I still give it 3 stars, and not because of all the things that are running through your head. No. It is an orc-elf arranged marriage romance. It follows an elf named Tegan. He is an heir of his elf kingdom, and Tegan has to marry the prince of the orcs, so the nations would proclaim peace. The premise is basic, but the book knows that it's camp, and that's why I liked it. So Tegan and Scribd the Relentless, this name is iconic, I'm sorry, meet each other for the first time during the engagement feast. And unlike in many other books with the similar plot, they actually don't hate each other. They want this marriage to work and for their nations to finally know peace. So it's definitely not enemies to lovers as you would expect, but it's still in the realm of these types of storylines. I actually like that the author had fresh takes for this kind of novella. The funniest part of this novella is that during the feast, the elves figure out that Scribd the Relentless is actually not the first son and not the heir of the Orc King, and they're so pressed, they're so petty about it. It's incredible. It made me laugh so much. Obviously the princes go along with it. They're trying to work with each other. You get all the kinky tropes in this novella that have to do with orc elf pairings. If you ever visited Archive of Our Own, you know what I'm talking about. So we get all that. They're trying to work together, actually find each other attractive, actually find each other kind, smart, and yada yada, actually fall in love. Then they're torn apart because of plot twist. I'm not going to reveal the plot twist because what if you actually want to read this? The plot twist was actually smart. I didn't expect it. The thing that I didn't like about the story, despite it being campy fun, is that the characters didn't really talk to each other much, and I don't think the author really knew how to make them have a good conversation. First, they were avoiding each other because they were uncomfortable with each other. Then, when they started to have conversations, the conversations just didn't flow very well. I think the author struggles with dialogue in general. I didn't really understand why they fell for each other in the first place. Yes, they had the bond that made them feel what the other spouse feels and what they think. It's one of those soulmate type of tropes, but it just felt like a crush. The relationship wasn't developed well enough. What I actually really enjoyed about this novel is the plot twists, the fresh funny takes from the author. The author clearly knows who they are writing for, and they are in on the joke. And I love it when authors are genuinely in on the joke when it comes to this more weird types of romances. So my friends, this is the end of the video. Tell me in the comments down below which one of this you will most likely pick up. If you reach this part of the video, leave the emoji of a snowflake, and I will see you soon with another video. But until then, bye.